Ladies and gentlemen, start your engines.
The story begins in a world destroyed by nuclear war, turning it into a chaotic wasteland. The land is now a desert with hardly any clean water or food, and the blood and bones of the survivors are poisoned. People have split into violent groups of marauders who don't follow any laws. Furiosa sees some marauders who have found their hidden spot. Furiosa tells her sister to stay quiet and hidden. She sneaks up to the marauders to sabotage their bikes so they can't leave. During the chase, Mary snipes down another marauder. The two remaining marauders disable their fallen comrade's bike by removing its fuel tank and a tire. However, Mary cleverly swaps these parts with her own bike as the other marauders speed ahead. Meanwhile, Furiosa regains consciousness and bites through the fuel pipe on her abductor, Toe Jam's bike. The bike eventually stops, but Toe uses a fuel tank they had collected earlier to continue. His partner considers abandoning Furiosa to escape the pursuing Mary on her thunderous bike. Toe insists they need Furiosa as proof of their discovery for their boss, Dementus. Meanwhile, Furiosa cuts her ropes using a knife on the bike and tries to escape but gets caught again. As Toe and his partner are near their camp, Mary shoots down the partner and manages to shoot out Toe's bike tire. Though he still reaches the camp safely. There, Toe claims to have found a place of abundance and promises to reveal its location only to Dementus. As Toe takes Furiosa to Dementus, she leaps off his bike and throws his whip into the wheel, causing Toe to crash and cut his neck. Despite their questioning, Furiosa remains silent, staring at them with intense hatred. Toe is then brought in, bleeding from his neck. Dementus demands the location of the place, but Toe can't speak as he's choking on his own blood. A doctor suggests hanging Toe upside down and asking him to draw a map. Before he can, Furiosa intervenes, kicking Toe until he dies. Dementus then politely tells Furiosa to rest, promising to take her home the next day. Meanwhile, Mary disguises herself in the clothes of Toe's partner. As a sandstorm approaches, Mary sneaks into the camp and kills the two guards distracted by eating a peach Furiosa had. She spares a woman watching over Furiosa. Mary takes the peach seed and escapes with Furiosa. The spared woman alerts other guards, who shoot at Mary's bike, setting it on fire. Mary removes her burning clothes and continues, but Furiosa notices Mary is bleeding from her back. Despite the sandstorm covering their tracks, Mary realizes Dementus's dogs can smell her blood. She decides to stay behind and sends Furiosa off, making her promise to navigate home by the stars.
Promise me you'll find your way home.
Plant this seed.
Mary gives Furiosa the peach seed, instructing her to plant and protect it. Furiosa drives away, but stops when she hears gunfire. Furiosa rushes back and finds her mother tied to a dead tree and being tortured. Dementus grabs Furiosa, demanding the location of her home to save Mary, but Furiosa remains silent. Dementus forces Furiosa to watch her mother die and keeps her captive. Later, he travels the wasteland searching for a place of abundance. He captures a group trying to escape and forces them to fight each other. The 5 survivors receive bikes, all tied to a single prisoner's body.
Go!
Dementus commands them to drive the bikes, brutally killing the prisoner. He gives Furiosa a teddy bear that once belonged to his children, and she watches the horrific scene unfold. Dementus then finds an injured war boy who tells him about the Citadel, a place with abundant food and water. Dementus and his bikers soon reach the Citadel, intending to conquer it. He gives a speech, urging the people to overthrow their leader, Immortan Joe, promising ample food. A battle ensues, with war boys attacking Dementus and his horde. In the next scene, Dementus follows a war rig to another wasteland fortress, Gastown. The war rig carries food and water in exchange for high-grade guzzling fuel. Seeing an opportunity, Dementus attacks the rig on its return journey, capturing it. He disguises some of his men as war boys using white mud and sends the rig back to Gastown. As they approach, Dementus and his crew follow, pretending to attack it. The Lord of Gastown becomes suspicious and doesn't open the gates. To convince him, Dementus starts attacking his own disguised men, shooting one and burning another with a flamethrower. The Lord falls for the act and orders the gates to open. Once inside, Dementus's men emerge from beneath the truck, kill the guards, and open the gates for the biker army to enter Gastown. Dementus then sends a piece of the Gastown Lord's finger with his ring to Immortan Joe, offering to negotiate. Joe agrees and meets with Dementus, who holds a metal arrow to the Lord's head and threatens to blow up Gastown with a remote-controlled device.
Please, give him what he wants! Can't hold this much longer! Who's that? It's my daughter, Little D.
Dementus lies, claiming Furiosa is his daughter, but Furiosa, who hasn't spoken since her mother's death, reveals the truth. She isn't his daughter, and Dementus killed her mother. Joe agrees to increase food and water supplies slightly, but demands to keep Furiosa and the doctor in return. Reluctantly, Dementus agrees and takes back his teddy from Furiosa. She is taken to a chamber where Immortan Joe's wives live and give birth to his heirs. Soon, one wife gives birth to a mutated stillborn baby. Meanwhile, Rictus becomes obsessed with Furiosa's hair. Seeing an opportunity, Furiosa cuts off her hair and creates a fake wig later on. At night, Rictus sneaks into the chamber and takes Furiosa to another room. As he plays with her hair, Furiosa runs away, leaving the wig behind. Rictus chases her to a dead end at a bridge on a cliff's edge but can't find her. His brother Scrotus asks what happened, but Rictus lies, claiming he had a bad dream. Meanwhile, Furiosa hides under the bridge, avoiding capture. In the next part, some time passes, and Furiosa, disguised as a boy, starts working at the Citadel. One windy day, she helps save a truck from falling on Scrotus's orders and is promoted to a dogman. Soon after, Immortan Joe orders the construction of a new, stronger, and faster war rig. During a meeting, Rictus is about to recognize Furiosa, but she is saved as he gets distracted by Scrotus. As the construction nears completion, Furiosa plans her escape during one of the runs. She attaches a bike and some supplies to the underside of the rig. During the rig's first run, Furiosa hangs underneath, but things go wrong when a group of mortifiers, former allies of Dementus, ambushes the war rig. She then holds Jack at gunpoint, ordering him to stop and leave the rig. Jack abruptly applies the brakes, seizes her gun, and throws her off the rig. He drives away for some distance but eventually returns, offering Furiosa a partnership since he has lost all his crew and needs a fierce warrior like Furiosa. He proposes to teach her all about road wars so that she can eventually go wherever she wishes. With no other viable option, Furiosa agrees and joins him. In the following chapter, some time has passed and the war rig is heading toward the third fortress of the Wastelands, the Bullet Farm. As they restock ammunition, the warlord bullet farmer expresses frustration over the fuel shortage from Gastown and seeks a meeting with Joe to address it. On their way back, Jack gives Furiosa a shotgun he's specially prepared to assist her on her journey. He informs Furiosa that her training is complete and she is free to leave, promising to support her with everything she needs. Days later, they arrive to supply Gastown, now in chaos due to Dementis' mismanagement. Dementis approaches Jack, blaming Joe for the chaos instead of taking responsibility. Back at the Citadel, the warlords are furious upon hearing about the situation. The bullet farmer suggests eliminating Dementis by attacking Gastown. So, Joe orders Jack and Furiosa to return to the bullet farm and gather all possible ammunition. In the next scene, Jack tends to Furiosa's wounds from the chaos in Gastown. He asks about the markings on her arm and shares the story of losing his parents, deepening their bond. The next day, on the way to the bullet farm, Jack stops the convoy and orders the crew to load their bikes onto the V8 truck and board the rig. He directs Furiosa to drive the V8 while a warboy handles the truck. Though Furiosa pretends to be surprised, she knows Jack has already planned their escape since the V8 is already stocked with supplies. Arriving at Bullet Farm, they find it seemingly deserted, but Jack realizes it's an ambush when he spots one of Dementis' dogs carrying a severed foot. Initially intending to leave, Furiosa hesitates, unable to abandon Jack, so she returns to snipe at Dementis' men. At a pillar in the bullet factory, Furiosa spots Dementis, who had raided the bullet farm before their arrival. Meanwhile, Jack deals with pursuers of the war rig, aided by Furiosa's cover fire. And a crane topples onto Jack's rig before he can escape, leaving it dangling over a deep trench. Meanwhile, Furiosa grabs a bike and races to Jack's aid. She throws a grapple hook just as the rig collapses, rescuing Jack just in time. They rush back to the V8 and speed away, but Dementis survives the fall and angrily pursues them in his monster truck. Bursting through the bullet farm's gate, he leads his men in a relentless chase. Soon, he catches up to the V8. Jack and Furiosa attempt to shoot him, but his truck's windshield is bulletproof. Furiosa and Jack are dragged from the wreckage. Dementis angrily declares they must pay for destroying the bullet farm. Furiosa and Jack hold on to each other, but Dementis says that survival is their only hope in the wastelands and everything else is hopeless. He further says that he will have justice and vengeance from Furiosa and Jack for destroying the bullet farm that was crucial for him to conquer the Citadel. With this, he orders Jack to be tied to a bike while he secures Furiosa's injured arm to his truck, forcing her to watch as Jack is dragged in circles with Dementis' dogs chasing him. After a while, Dementis decides it's enough and approaches Furiosa, only to discover she has severed her own arm and escaped on a bike. As Dementis tries to pursue her in his truck, he realizes she has sabotaged it, causing its wheels to come off. The bikers give chase, but Furiosa manages to evade them. After covering some distance, her bike runs out of fuel, and she continues on foot until she collapses. Later, Furiosa awakens in a maggot farm beneath the Citadel, where she's mistaken for dead and left for the maggots. Panicked upon waking, she returns to the Citadel fortress.
I am the Praetorian Furiosa!
Inside, the warlords are strategizing upon noticing Gastown on fire. Furiosa interrupts, revealing Dementis' plot to draw them away from the Citadel, leaving it unprotected from an attack. Immortan Joe decides to send a decoy convoy to Gastown to deceive Dementis. But Furiosa demands Joe leave Dementis to her if captured. Joe's plan succeeds as Dementis takes the bait and marches towards the Citadel with his army. The decoy convoy is recalled with signaling flares. The history man then narrates that humans have always fought each other. The chaotic 40-day war in the wasteland, fueled by grief, was just another example of this endless conflict. Meanwhile, Furiosa uses her time to create a robotic prosthetic arm and cuts her hair short. In the aftermath of the war, while the Citadel stands strong, Dementis' army is significantly weakened, but Dementis himself survives. Furiosa soon requests a car to leave, but she is given an old one left that is missing a wheel. Undeterred, Furiosa takes it and drives to a battlefield littered with corpses. There, she encounters Joe's sons scavenging for a tire for their modified car. She offers her own car's tire, which they quickly take, along with her fuel. Amidst a debate between Scrotus and Rictus over who will take the car, Furiosa seizes the opportunity and makes her escape. Scrotus is stunned by her boldness, but the history man standing nearby describes Furiosa as the darkest of all angels. Furiosa soon catches up with Dementus and begins picking off his men with precise sniper shots. In response, Dementus disperses his group into 3 directions to evade her pursuit. Initially, Furiosa follows the route taken by Dementus's usual bike, eliminating the escorting riders. From a vantage point on a rocky hill, Furiosa observes another biker in the second direction being ambushed by raiders, confirming he is not Dementus. Left with only one option, Furiosa tracks the biker heading in the third direction. Later on, Dementus awakens in a makeshift camp as the storm subsides. Behind him, Furiosa stands on a dune. Dementus accuses her of being a freak for not killing him in his sleep and attempts to shoot her, but his gun is empty. Furiosa walks away, prompting Dementus to head in the opposite direction, with Furiosa slowly trailing him in her car. Eventually, Dementus surrenders to Furiosa. She steps out and asks if he remembers her.
Remember me?
I've always wanted help.
Despite everything you did to her, she was magnificent.
Ah, you were there.
She demands that he return her loved ones, but Dementus asserts there's nothing he can do to help her. He predicts that she'll eventually have to kill him, quickly or slowly, but insists she'll never recover what she lost.
I can't! Again! Do it again!
Dementus collapses from a seizure, and Furiosa takes his teddy bear. When he wakes again, he realizes she's the little girl he found 15 years ago. He's glad she's grown to be like him, but Furiosa denies any resemblance. Dementus says that they're all living deaths haunted by sorrow, needing to make their deaths epic. The history man then tells stories of how people imagined Furiosa might have ended Dementus, but the truth is, he's alive in the depths of Citadel, where a peach tree thrives on nutrients from his decaying body. In the movie's conclusion, Furiosa divides the tree's first fruit among Joe's wives,